You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel,
I'm Daryl Sanders.
and we are your hosts for the show. And I see you're getting in your Sith-like outfit in order to cover this whole little thing that we're doing
Yes,
today.
I'm getting
Focusing
in
on,
cosplay over here.
yeah, there you go. All right, we're going to focus on the top 10 dark side users as, well, I should say, not according to us, according to comicbook.com. We ran across this article. We thought, you know what? The Maul Shadow Lord series premieres today. So why not, right? Let's just go ahead and focus on this one article, get us warmed up for it. The way that we'll be reviewing starting next week, 2 episodes drop today. 2 episodes will continue to drop each week until the series is done. Do you remember how many episodes there were of this show? Was it like 8? Or
I think it's 8.
yeah, well, I'm sure somebody in the chats will correct us. Ted basically said that the first 2 episodes of Maul were great classic Star Wars animation series goodness. So that's I think a resounding
Yes.
endorsement for it, which is good. I mean, have you actually watched it yet?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either. I haven't had a chance to watch it. Barely had a chance to jump on this show. But essentially, yeah, I'm looking pretty forward to seeing it. Of course, we're very much looking forward to reviewing it. We hope you guys end up watching that. And, just watch us because we're cool, right? All right. So basically, again, just as a little bit of a background, comicbook.com released, I think it was like last week sometime, or maybe it was a couple of weeks ago, because I remember it was a show we were going to do, and then we postponed it. And then we thought it would actually be a good idea to do it tonight, because with the premiere of Maul, it sort of goes into that. Now, have you
It's
had a
10
chance?
episodes, by the way.
Oh, is it? It is 10?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. 2 episodes per week, 5 weeks. All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's something that I don't know. Well, first of all, let me ask this: did you look at this list yet?
Yes.
Okay, what'd you think of it?
I'm. I think there's some people that definitely were left off that probably should be on the list.
100%.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that. And then the ranking. Mm, eh, some things may be debatable.
Yeah, that was pretty much the way I felt too. I thought, like, actually, the ranking, I didn't have too much of a problem with the ranking.
No, I didn't have too much of a problem with the ones that they picked.
Right,
It's
that's it.
just, yeah.
And the ones that they picked, like, there were some that, even though I enjoyed seeing each person on this list, like you, I thought that there were some pretty glaring omissions actually, and it's an interesting list. So we're gonna start with probably a controversial character, like right off the bat. Although a character that I actually love and would love to see more, like I would love to see this character in more projects, even though the
Mm,
project of in which they originated is dead. But
yes.
I think that this was a standout character, and I think it's somebody that honestly deserves to be in more projects. And in fact, I ended up saying that on a Facebook group not too long ago, because it's not like I'm actually like going around. I probably should, but I don't really get a chance to peruse a lot of Star Wars groups or anything like that like I used to a while ago. But this one just happened to pop up on my feed, so I commented. And so, kicking off the list, again, this is comicbook.com's list. This is not our list. Coming in at number 10 is Kamir, the stranger from the Acolyte. And again, I actually really enjoyed his character. I thought that he was probably one of the best things from that show.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that he was definitely, an interesting character, um, full of potential, but uh, and that's the thing is like we never would really see what would have become of him as a character. I kind of put him in a weird category. He's kind of reminds me of Kylo.
I can see
So
that.
and Kylo was weird, but he was also powerful, and I could see, and he's one of the ones that didn't make it on this list, which is surprising to me.
Yeah, that was one of the when I said glaring omissions, he was one of the ones that I was
Yeah,
very shocked was not on this list, especially given his power,
exactly.
you know? I mean, there
Yeah, I mean, there's and significant power. I mean, just considering that he's a Skywalker, um, he's and then he was trained, s- I guess, if you want to say, uh, vicariously through Palpatine, by Palpatine, I should say,
Mhm.
through Snoke. So, I'm surprised that he's not on, not even the fact that he's not higher, but the fact that he's not even on the list. But as far as Kamir is concerned, I think that one scene when he wiped out like all those
Oh,
Jedi, though.
that
Oh
was
my
so good.
God, it was just
That was
like,
so good. And you know what's funny
sheesh.
about that? And this is a comment that I actually made in that group is I thought that this was the character that should have been the focus of the acolyte.
Yeah,
You know, he should have been like make it about him and Plagueis or something. Or,
yeah,
whatever.
absolutely.
This is what we should have gotten. Ted basically says it's a return of Darth Daryl. Very appropriate for tonight's episode.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. Well, again, I was happy though to see that he at least made their list. I thought that it was also a nice touch that comicbook.com was in fact trying to maybe branch out a little bit with their choices and not go for all the obvious. But then again, the obvious ones are the obvious ones for a reason. All right, coming in at number 9, we have Asajj Ventress, and I was actually really happy to see her on the list because I actually think that she gets shortchanged on a lot of these kind of lists, mostly because she's not technically a Sith Lord; she's more of an assassin. And again, it should be noted that the title of this, it's the title of our show. It's also the title of the article for which we're getting this. It's top 10 dark side users. It's not top 10 Sith, which if you
Right.
actually join our membership program, we did do a top 10 Sith list. So, there is that. But
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, the fact that this is a dark side user, and so
mhm,
she definitely falls into this category, being an apprentice of such of Count Dooku, and like she proved to be very formidable. I mean, like she gave Anakin and Obi-Wan, a run for their money on numerous occasions, and then even afterwards, she still proved to be a very formidable uh, sort of Lone Ranger assassin. Um, However, uh, I don't know if I would, and this is where it gets dicey. I don't know if I would rank her above Kamir,
yeah.
because here's the reason why I say that. Kamir actually took out Jedi in the High Republic at their zenith. I haven't. I mean, Asajj hasn't done it. She hasn't taken on anybody.
No,
I mean, Grievous has actually taken out, killed Jedi, but I've never seen, or heard of Asajj doing it.
no, I don't. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't recall that either, actually. And it is true. That was the one thing that did blow by me on this list that I didn't think about is the fact that, yeah, she's ranked above Kamir. And I don't know if it almost seems like this should be reversed.
Now, if this isn't a weighted list, if this is just the top 10, like you're just listing a bunch of dark side users, I would let this go. But if we're actually weighting this list and saying
I
that,
think it is weighted. I mean, just
yeah, and that's what
because
I'm
if you
saying, like,
just look at
if
the
you're,
overall ranking, it feels like it is weighted.
It does. So that's why I said I'm like, I mean, I'm trying to give them a margin of error here, but it's it doesn't seem to be holding up for them. So yeah, I honestly don't think I will put Asajj over Kamir.
Well, and here's the thing. I think that part of what it is the fact that we've seen more of the Asajj character and we've seen
Hmm.
her entire arc, and I think that that's where the temptation comes in of, maybe that's why people want to actually rank her a little bit higher, right? Because we've only seen Kamir in a very limited scope. Even though, if you're really paying attention, and that's the reason why I said that this list is highly debatable, is because yeah, if you just go by the in-universe explanations of everything, if you just go by all of that, right, just based on the character, the time period, like you point out, it's the High Republic. This is like the zenith of the Jedi or whatever. I don't know. It's one of those things where I can see why they probably ranked Asajj higher because we've seen more of her. We've seen more of what she can do. But it's true when you factor in what Kamir has done and even the limited scope that we've seen him, you just go by his pedigree, his
Hmm.
power. Yeah, I mean, I would have to rank him actually higher than Asajj.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's a good point. Wow, it's like right out the gate. It's like our
Right
first
after, but you did say it was controversial, so there
well, it
you go.
is. I mean, it is. And that it's funny because when I was reading this and I was looking at this, I was just like, man, I mean, it's not a bad list, but there are some problems. It's kind of like the sequel trilogy that way, right? Like it's fun. And look, I mean,
Right.
any list that you come up with is going to be up for debate. And I don't know. I mean, other than maybe the story group or somebody like George Lucas or something like that, they're probably the only ones that can come up with a list that you could say, okay, this is canonical. And even then, people would argue about it. So there's really no winning at this. But I was kind of shocked, in spite of the glaring omissions that they had, and in spite of the fact that you can probably debate, which of course is what makes this fun. Actually, I didn't think this was bad because usually these kind of lists, they're almost some of them are really off, and some of them are almost like popularity. They're
Yeah.
It's like this character is more popular, so they rank him as more powerful. It's like, oh, hold on, you
Mm.
know, let's not get too excited. Speaking of that, here's somebody who maybe we'll debate should be higher on the list. This is number 8. Number 8 is Count Dooku. And this is interesting
Mm.
too because, this would be our first example. Now, even though Dooku did cross to the dark side, he became a Sith Lord, Darth Tyrannus, he had his Sith name. You
Yeah.
can't
Our
argue the
first Sith
fact that he
Lord
was
of
a
the
Sith.
day.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing about it, which I find interesting too, is you can also make the argument that in a way, for at least a little while, he was also our first gray Jedi of the day too. At least
Well, I think
until he went.
that's what makes him cool is that he's kind of been everything. He's been an actual Jedi, then a gray Jedi, and then a full blown Sith Lord.
I know
So
he's like a
uh,
gradient in the Force.
exactly.
But he's a character too that he's another interesting one. And again, I'm glad that they ranked him higher, but it's like he's only one level higher than his apprentice. I don't know. And there's another person who's ranked higher on this list that I think Dooku would be able to. I'll just
Mm.
I'll just leave it at that because even that might be up for debate. Some
Yeah.
people. I don't know. We'll have to see. But this is one of those choices where, again, This is a guy that went up against Yoda, you know,
Not only
he
that, but he was trained by him.
trained by him, then he was trained by Palpatine,
Hmm.
I
Two of
don't
the most
know.
powerful force users on either side, and that's why I'm saying, like, okay, depending on who, I don't recall who number seven is. I'm sure when we get to it,
Yeah, I know, I don't
that's
either.
going to be
I don't
like,
remember. Like, I remember the people that are on the list, but I don't remember all the rankings.
right. So, but the thing is about him is that, yeah, he is a pretty powerful guy. I think maybe age may play a factor into it
Yeah.
for him, just because he's older. He may not have, he has tons of experience, sure, but when it comes to, um, and he's usually pretty good because his lightsaber form is one that it's about finesse, and so it's more about not giving you a whole barrage of strikes like an Anakin would. His is more like less movement but more efficiency.
Well, and in
So,
addition to that, and this is something that I think, because this is what seems to happen when any force user, I don't care if they're light side, dark side, whenever they start to, let's just say, age out, they always rely
hmm,
more on the force powers than they do the swordsmanship, it seems.
true.
And this is why I think, I don't know, him being a little bit lower on this list, because when you really stop and think of his force power, because I can see where people might, like, if this were a, top 10 dark side swordsman, or lightsaber duelists or whatever, okay, this might be fair. But given that he is super powerful, I don't know. I just think that maybe he's a little bit lower than he should be. But again, much like you, I don't remember, since we actually put this show together, I don't remember like every little ranking on here. I don't have any notes in
Hmm.
front of me because again, we try to keep this like a little bit more loose, um and just a little bit uh more up for debate. And speaking of debate, Dom is joining
Dom,
us.
I knew
Dom,
it.
yeah, well,
I knew it.
there's
As soon as you
nowhere
said
we can
debate, I was like,
there's nowhere we can hide from Dom. Dom will find us. Dom, you must have hit the notification bell to know when we're going on, which is, that's good. More people should follow
good thing.
suit. But all right, let's see what Dom has to say. Dom says Dooku has no outstanding feats.
I agree. I mean,
Yeah,
if you look at him, if you look at him in the movies, I would agree. Now, the Clone Wars animation, I would disagree.
yeah, that's
'Cause he
true,
gets
and
bit.
that's
He
that's
gets
a
busy in the Clone Wars animation.
no, you're right. And I mean, the other thing too that you have to look at is the fact, and this has been a problem with Star Wars all along, to be honest, is again, you have to take in a lot of content. You have to,
Hmm.
you can't, I can see that people would actually formulate opinions about certain characters based on the films and then run into a fan that maybe consumes everything. And then, the person that's consuming a lot of different medium or media will say, "Well, wait, what are you talking about?" You're like way off
Like
base
I,
on this.
like I can give you one right now. Like, even though I don't know who the number seven is, but I can tell you I do know this person's on this list, and I just don't recall exactly where they rank. However, I know Dooku is more powerful than all.
That's who I was talking about. So when I was actually just alluding to
Yeah,
somebody else on this list that ranks
yeah,
higher, yeah, that's
yeah,
exactly who
exactly.
I'm
Right,
talking about.
right. Okay, cool. We're on the
It's
same.
like,
Yeah,
dude, because Maul,
I know.
if I remember, again, I don't remember, and even if I did remember the exact, I'm not going to give it away. That's the whole point of this show is to do this countdown. But I know he's up there somewhat high, and
Hmm.
that's where I'm sitting there. That's the only problem I have where Dooku is on this list. I'm like, really? I mean, they're putting Maul higher than Dooku because that's why I also made the comment earlier. I basically alluded to the fact that maybe if they're talking about like swordsmanship or acrobatics or something like that, but even then, like you said,
Well, see,
Dooku's swordsman, his whole lightsaber style, his form
mhm.
is actually amazing.
Well,
No-
here's my thing, and I want to kind of, I don't want to say preface, but I guess I kind of want to clear up, when we say powerful, what does that really mean, right? Because how do you
Yeah.
gauge? Because the question it becomes, how do you gauge who is powerful? Because let's just put it this way. Don made a point that said, okay, Dooku had no uh, basically eccentric feats, right? Nothing that was like that was just like, oh wow, he's really powerful. But if you really think about it, like neither did Palpatine. But we all know Palpatine is super powerful. So it's like when you start looking at these characters, you have to now have to ask or beg the question, well, how do you determine power in the sense of, you know, some of these characters? And I think is essentially it's like who could beat them and what it took or what it would take to beat someone like this person.
Well,
And
I think you also alluded to the answer to that in other shows when you basically talk about how other characters relate to those characters. You know,
mhm,
like we basically like for instance, before we even saw the Emperor, right? And you see
right.
Vader's like, bowing to him. Everybody's talking about him, and it's just like, man, I mean, this Vader guy, because we've seen what he can do.
Mhm,
And yet, again, now when you go by the movies and all that stuff, I could see where somebody might actually look at it and go, I don't know. I mean, you could tell even when you watch the movies, you could tell that Palpatine is immensely powerful. But I could actually understand it if somebody watched the movies and thought maybe Vader was more so, or you know. But it's when you start to actually go beyond that, and you just see how Palpatine just absolutely wipes the floor. Like there was one scene in it was either one of the novels or the comics where Palpatine decided he had to punish Vader, and I mean he just absolutely
devastated.
devastated him. It's
Mhm,
and it was basically to remind him that hey, the idea of the Sith thing, right, is that there can only be two, and once the idea is that the what is it, one to crave power and the other to hold it or something like that. And
yeah,
basically, you have to it's understood that the Sith master would eventually be overtaken by the apprentice, but the apprentice has to earn that by becoming more powerful. And
right.
then of course that person takes on their own apprentice, and that's sort of how it rolls. So, yeah, I could see that. Now Dom's got,
Yeah.
a bunch of come as no surprise. First he says low key Ray could probably take him, meaning Dooku. Mm.
Nah.
He's like, is Ray on this list? No, Ray is not on this list. She's not a dark side user unless you count
You
that
talk about the
vision that
little
she had. Yeah.
right.
Then
Yeah,
of
you
course he
talk
says the ridiculous Palpatine is not powerful. Um, Vader carried him. It's like,
but again, I mean, like once again, Dom, though, if you say that, ex- show me where Vader did something extraordinary. Like we're going by the films. What did he do that was extraordinary? Nothing.
other than yeah, choke some people. I mean, it's because again, it's
I
like,
mean, yeah, it's
but yeah,
it's
you could
it's
point
what.
to Palpatine. I mean, look at how he did that little tornado move on the Jedi in the prequels, and then took them all out, and
Yeah,
then
but see now you're saying like, okay, he wiped out literally a third of the Jedi Council in like less than 5 minutes.
Right. And
And
Vader
then he
didn't
still
really.
held his own against the number two, which is Mace Windu.
Right.
And he stood up against Yoda and actually defeated Yoda. So that's what I'm saying. Like you have, if we're going to measure power and how powerful someone is, like we have to kind of set the parameters as to what that is.
All right, I'll give him a little bit of this. He says number one, he says a pure aura of, which, I
Oh,
get.
please.
Another one, well, it's how other people react to him, so that. But the hallway
It's in
scene,
your
he does have a point there. That hallway scene was pretty crazy. The Rogue One one.
Okay, so you have a Sith Lord who can block a bunch of blaster bolts. Like we haven't seen that from regular,
Yeah, like normal
these guys aren't
Jedi.
even force. Yeah, they're not even force users. So I don't. Again, I don't. You
And
got to
then
miss me with that.
he goes on to say force abilities.
What force abilities did he show that was extraordinary? Besides choking someone and using a lightsaber.
It's like I think he's moved on to that one. Or at least he hasn't gotten
Hmm.
to it yet. Neither's a delay. He says Palpatine is an old unk that needs to retire. And somehow he returned. I will say
That's
this
pretty
though.
powerful.
I'll give
Powerful for
him
me.
I will grant this that yes, it was a little, even though I did enjoy seeing Palpatine return, they really should have left that alone. That they
Yeah.
should have left things the way they ended in Return of
Or
the
at least
Jedi
came
and
up with
not.
a better. Well, at least came up with a better
Yes.
explanation.
I would even go for
If
that.
you're gonna bring him back, give us a better, you know, explanation for his resurrection. Shall we say?
All right. So Tom also says because he is powerful enough and he has the same abilities as Palpatine, just stronger because he is in his prime. He's not really in his prime though.
And he's
Is it?
not stronger than Palpatine because obviously Palpatine wiped the
Yeah.
floor with him.
Yeah. Now,
So
granted, if you
again,
go by, even if you go by the movies, you know, like if Anakin were still outside of the suit, you might be able to make a stronger point in this argument.
sure.
But the fact that all Palpatine would have to do is just use the Force to shut down his respirator, and he's done. Now, again, it's another little modification I remember they made in some novel. Maybe it was a comic. I don't remember.
Oh, and they like basically put a surge protector on the thing
Well,
so he
yeah,
can
or
do
like a
it.
UPS. I don't know. He put some sort of a thing that would protect him from that because he figured Palpatine might try something like that. Or actually, I think Palpatine did do something.
Yeah.
Uh, Tom says, not in his peak, but in his prime. Uh, he said Anakin was in his prime, but never reached his peak. And I mean, so there's a little bit of truth to that because of the whole forceability thing. Because obviously Vader, it was almost like Vader in learning to fight with the suit. He had to rely more on the Force, so he got a lot stronger in the Force. And plus, grew in the dark side. Palpatine was basically training him. And this is even going by the movies, because honestly, if you go by the things that are outside of the movies, yeah, Vader is just insanely powerful. But if you're just sticking with the movies, then yeah, because I remember Lucas actually even made the point on one of the commentaries that Vader, basically what he lacked in the whole acrobatic thing and pretty much what he was doing as Anakin, even though he would have been more powerful had he not been put in the suit, he did actually grow in immense power, which of course a lot of other things talk about as well. All right, let's do number 7. Because Vader's, we can we should get to Vader when we get to Vader, because I'm
Yeah.
sure Vader and Anakin, I know they're on this list. This one is a interesting addition though, because this is not somebody that I would necessarily think of, but Mother Talzin. She's one of the witches, of course, of Dathomir, or
Yeah.
What were
Now,
they
see, I
called
can
in?
see her being over Dooku.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And this is a choice that honestly she's probably sitting where she needs to be in this ranking of these characters. I don't necessarily think that she's too high. I don't necessarily think that she's too low. And again, we have to go by a lot of the things that we've seen. She was also based on I'm trying to remember. She was based on an expanded universe character actually. All the whole group was really, but her character in particular, it escapes me right now, but I thought that they did a pretty good job of taking an expanded universe can- character. I'll get it out. Taking an expanded universe character and then canonizing them, but generally keeping them pretty level. Like they didn't change her because the biggest temptation sometimes when you take an expanded universe character and you bring them into the new canon is you want to change them or you need to alter them because of some other changes you made or whatever. I was really happy like when they took Thrawn and they put him in canon, they pretty much kept him as is. Same thing with the pretty much the character that Mother Talzin is based on, which I can remember. And then of course the character herself. Now of course Dom gives it a thumbs down, but probably because you don't even know who it is. Probably never saw
Yeah,
her.
Mother Talzin is a very powerful, witch, and which means that she has abilities and things that are kind of even outside of the Force. So that
Right.
makes her a little bit more of an anomaly, which is what Palpatine, and this is how you, again, how you judge her power is because Palpatine was actually afraid of her
Yeah.
because she knew things that he didn't know. And that's why he got into the whole alchemy thing was basically because of her, because
Yep.
she had abilities to create life and do all these other types of necromancer type things that he wanted to get into that he just didn't have the necessarily know how initially on how to do it.
Yep. And Dom says, no, I don't know who it is. But I mean, it's a character worth exploring, honestly, because in a lot of ways, I think I don't even necessarily think underrated. I think in some ways undervalued. Not so much in like the novels and comics, because I think they do make good use of the character there. But I mean, I think there's times where she could have popped up more. Like you talk about the whole Palpatine and Towson relationship. I really wish they had explored that a little bit more. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
There's only so many things you could do, but if you really stop and think about it, it's like because she was in the Clone Wars, right?
Yes.
So why couldn't we have seen more Palpatine, Towson, him trying to figure out, but not necessarily give away who he is, instead of the droids getting lost on a sand planet and having to find their way back for 4 episodes? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's like they could have taken some of that filler and given us some stories that would have actually enhanced the main storylines. That's really the kind of thing that I had always been talking.
Hmm. I agree.
He says Vader could solo her, Anakin or Luke would win. Luke probably, um, post Return of the Jedi, but it might be close though because it's like you said, she had that like all that magic and stuff that pretty much they never really put any boundaries on her. I don't think. Like, did we ever see like the edge of her powers? I don't ever remember seeing that.
I know she was confined to, I want to say like that cave or something at one point.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I do remember something like that. Um, yeah, at some point, especially because we do this show, I should really go back and rewatch the Clone Wars again because there's so much that comes from that,
Hmm.
and it ends up being the source of a lot of our topics on the show too, like a lot of references that
Well,
we have to
especially,
make.
she's going to be in the Ahsoka season too. So,
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, number 6. Number 6 is Darth Maul. So again, didn't Mother Talzin have something to do with Maul's creation?
yes,
So really, I mean,
exactly.
this is the
Exactly.
only glaring error to me. I mean, okay, so I'll tell you too, because we're basically just about halfway through the list. I don't feel bad spoiling this. So the two glaring errors we've already basically mentioned a couple of them. Number one, Maul being a little too high on this list. 2, Kylo not being on this list.
Hmm.
And 3, it's like, where's Darth Nihilus
Or Bane, or
or Exar Kun
yeah,
or like any of these guys? I mean, there's again, I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to go more for dark side users
and most people would know.
that most people
One,
would probably know. Even though there's a couple people. Well, no, you're right
I'm saying
because
by and large, like,
yeah, well, even the ones that are a little bit lesser known have been brought up in current projects. Let's put it like that. Now, even though, yes, Darth Maul, look, we're celebrating the fact that, Maul Shadow Lord has been released, and we're going to be starting reviewing it on next Sunday's show. But again, this is just one of those things where I think that he's just a little too high on this list.
yeah, and to be ahead of Dooku.
I don't even know if he could beat Khmer.
That would be interesting.
That would be a cool.
That would
That
be a
would
cool
actually.
battle.
That would almost be a really
No,
cool
yeah, no,
discussion
that's
point. Like a whole
yeah. I mean,
show on that.
yeah.
Because that,
Honest, honestly, ooh,
it could be one of those percent. You know how they'll do percentages where like, okay, 60% of the time this character wins, 40% this other one wins, or something like
hmm,
that. I've seen a lot of these like versus shows where they'll do that. They'll put two characters either in the same franchise or in a different franchise, and they'll pit them against each other, and they'll
hmm,
basically be like, oh, this one like would win a certain percentage of the time, or that one would win a certain percentage of the time. So I don't know. I just think that Maul's a little bit too high on this list. All right, let me get this one comment from Dom, and then we can move on to our number 5. He says, "Didn't this guy appear in one fight scene and lose?" No,
no,
actually, that's the problem. The problem is initially yes, and then they brought him back to life in the Clone Wars, and he's been like the star of the show. He literally is the Jason Voorhees of Star Wars. I mean, this guy has been in multiple projects. I mean, I remember when we saw him in the last scene of the Solo movie. I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool, but wow, talk about making a comeback.
hey,
This guy is
well
like in
said.
every. He's almost in as many things as Anthony Daniels at this point. Like, as 3PO.
LL Cool Mom, or Cool Mall, don't call it a comeback.
Man. But yeah, so that's ranking wise, I just think he's a little bit too high. We could debate whether or not he should be the number 10 or, maybe like number 9 or something, but I just think that this guy's a little bit too high on this list. And you definitely concur with that, right?
Oh yeah,
All right. Now we
me
can move
too.
on to number 5, halfway through the list. Darth Revan.
Revan.
Now it was really nice to see him be somewhat canonized by appearing as a statue in The Rise of Skywalker.
Mm,
Um, so he's around. He was one of those guys that I was talking about where it was nice to see some of these lesser known characters pop up. But again, it's like,
mm,
okay, there's another guy that used to be lesser known, but His name has popped up. He even appeared in the Acolyte, so that's your big. Um, he's actually really cool. I think in some ways, I don't know, he might even be a little like one or two too low.
Um, too low.
Yeah, because I know the temptation is, some of the classic ones are left. But I think that
Uh,
because again, we don't have a whole lot to go on besides, I mean, he was only canonized because they acknowledged his existence in a current, new canon
project.
Disney film. Yeah. So the only thing that you can really go on is a lot of the expanded universe stuff, or the primarily the Knights of the Old Republic game. That's really where his character originated.
Hmm.
And if you look at a lot of the things that he did, I don't know. He just again, I like I said at the beginning of the show, I don't necessarily have the biggest problem with this ranking. Like I can live with it. That's sort of the way. Even though there's some glaring things, like the two things I think that you and I both agree on and feel is probably the biggest problems with this list is one, no Kylo Ren, two, Maul's like way too high in comparison with the bottom five characters. So,
Hmm.
but other than that, really, I could live with this list because I can see in a certain frame, you know, how you can do it. Um, Dom basically says, looks like a knockoff Kylo with a purple lightsaber. Well, it would really be more fair
Actually,
to
Kylo
say
would
that,
be.
yeah, Kylo would
Yeah,
be a
Kylo
knockoff
and
Revan.
off Revan. Yeah.
Yeah, because this Revan appearing in the Knights of the Old Republic video game that came out in like I don't know 2000 or something, 99 or whatever it was. So Revan's technically first, and actually I thought when they started showing Kylo in his mask,
Yeah.
I was like, wait, is that Revan? And then Dom says, wouldn't Kylo be at the bottom of this list? No,
No.
he would. He would. I don't know. If I had to just guess, I'd say he'd probably be like around 5 or 6.
Mm, I think I would have him. I don't know. I mean, Dooku would have to move up,
Well, and Maul would have to move
and Maul have
down.
to move down. Yeah, we would have to play around with a lot of different pieces to really, because he's a weird anomaly to put in there, Kylo, compared because even comparing him with Dooku is like I think Dooku would definitely best him,
Yeah,
but
probably. Yeah, I mean, well, I would definitely say he would. He would. I think he would easily best him in a lightsaber. Force wise, too, he would. It's kind of tough.
because yeah, Kylo's got some powers that he's done some things that
Yeah,
most people haven't seen. Like
he
when you see he
exactly.
throws that blaster bolt in
Throws a blaster bolt,
midair.
the whole like,
The,
just tearing the consciousness out and like forcing people to
yeah, to like reveal their thoughts.
yeah, just
But
like
then
basically ripping him out of his mind, the whole dyad and the force thing.
I was about to say the whole diet thing. Like I don't know how much that plays into. I mean, into his like. Is it only when he's with Ray that is activated, or was it like that even without her around?
Well, I
You
think
know,
it's only with Ray because the dyad, it's like the two, right? Because if you think about
yeah,
it, and this is about the only thing that works in the cheesy factor of making her a Palpatine, right? He's a Skywalker, she's a Palpatine. Oh, it sounds like the intro to like some sort of sitcom.
yeah.
He's a Skywalker, she's a Palpatine. Stay tuned,
The
that kind of
Brady.
thing. But
There's a story of a lovely.
given the fact that their lineage is of power, you could see where maybe somehow this whole dyad thing, because they never really, that's another thing. And to my knowledge, it's never even been explained in any like, novel or comic or video game or anything. It's like we don't even really know what activates the dyad.
That's what I'm saying.
Like we don't even know enough about the whole dyad phenomenon to even really go, okay. I
Why?
mean,
Because it
obvious.
wasn't explained.
Exactly. Uh,
Sorry, I
Dom
get a little
says,
emotional.
he says, does he beat Maul? So does Kylo beat Maul? Yeah, Kylo.
Yeah, yeah.
There wouldn't even be. It's not even a contest. I mean, just with Kylo's force powers alone, he would completely devastate him. But yeah, I mean, I can. I. It's interesting to see where he would fit in this whole thing. He would probably be in the middle. I mean, I wouldn't put him too low, but I don't think it's wise to put him too high. And honestly, that really brings us to our number 4 because, and it would be a temptation, because I don't know. This almost goes back into what we were talking about with Dom, where Palpatine / Darth Sidious is our number 4, and it's like, okay, I think when you look at the people who are above him, you have to take certain things. I don't. It's not at face value. It's almost like there's certain things that you have to acknowledge about the characters. I don't want to go too deep into it until we reveal probably our number 3. But this is why when you leave off some of these more powerful guys like Exar Kun or Nihilus or any of those guys, it's like I could see Palpatine being in this ranking against those guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if, and again, I mean, I remember some of the people that we have left, but not everybody. And it's like, I just don't know if maybe this isn't a little too low too.
Well, no, I don't. I mean, I think the only way I can see. Okay, now this part of this section I do recall. Like I know who's left.
I know 2 of the 3 that are left.
Now number 3 is an argument that can be made that we were discussing earlier.
Yeah, and that's
But
that's number 3 I remember.
now 2, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, 2 I could see. And then definitely number 1.
This
That's
comment from
no.
Dom is hilarious. He says, sits in a chair the entire time and occasionally shoots lightning from his fingers, and people say he is strong.
Hey,
Yeah, but you also have to remember, and this is what's funny about as the franchise ages, you're revealing more and more force powers. There's a couple of things that you have to look at. One's an in-universe thing. The other one is kind of the out of universe thing is that we really hadn't seen that before. If you really stop and think of the original, now, yeah, when you factor in the prequels and you're going chronological, well, then you can understand that. And that brings me to the in-universe part. The in-universe part is that he basically didn't really have to do much beyond that because there really weren't any Jedi left. There really weren't any Force users left to speak of other than Luke. I mean, they didn't know about Yoda. Yoda had passed away shortly before Luke confronted him the second. Obi-Wan was gone. And sure, we learned from later projects that, oh, look, Ahsoka's still floating around. There's all these people that are coming out of the woodwork where if I were Luke, I'd be like, "Hey, where were you guys? I could have used your help in the throne room,
Mhm.
but
Well, even based on the things you've already said, how's that not powerful, Dom? I mean, the fact that okay, there were no Jedi around. How did that happen, Palpatine? Oh, how did he take over? Who took over the Empire? I don't know. Who's that? Palpatine. Like this whole thing is hinged upon this guy.
yeah." And
That's not
actually,
power.
that reminds me, Dom should actually go back and check out, what do we call that show?
Palpatine. That was
Yeah, the one where we said, like why Palpatine was the most powerful or his true power or something, because we were going beyond just the obvious immense force powers that he has. We were talking a lot about, his political deceptions and how he played both
yeah.
sides of the war and like this whole long game that he ended up playing that was just crazy impressive. And the fact that he was able to pivot when things didn't exactly go as planned, and yet he was still able
Mhm.
to achieve it. I mean, it's crazy when you
Not
think
yet.
about it.
And then still keep Vader on the leash. He still, like I said, took out a third of the council. And on top of that, he went up against the number two and the number one person on the Jedi Council and survived.
Yep. Yep. And this is why, you got to see when he says he didn't have too much because Vader did it all himself. I think we just clearly showed that he didn't.
Yeah.
Actually, he didn't do, Vader wasn't privy to a lot of the stuff that Palpatine was doing.
Yeah, Vader didn't come in really until the tail end of it.
Yeah, he
It was
came in
already
at the
pretty much
tail end.
established.
Yeah. And actually, when, like what you just said, when Palpatine wiped out half the Jedi Council and went up against Mace, that's when Anakin finally came up and was
Hmm.
trying to arrest him or whatever. Not to minimize Vader's role, don't get me wrong here. I don't think either one of us are trying to do that. I'm just saying, you just
Things in
you
perspective.
gotta, yeah. It says an emperor should be on the battlefield and cowering far away is space. Wouldn't make a very good war planner, I don't. All right, so number 3 is, of course, Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, which is what we were talking about. Now, Lucas had said, well, actually, Palpatine even himself, basically,
Yep.
when he was dueling Yoda, said, look, this guy's going to be more powerful than both of us. It's
Yep.
so, I mean, they acknowledge that. Now, where you could debate this is, had he not been injured and not gone into the suit, he would have achieved that a lot faster and sooner. But he
Hmm.
was never able to eclipse Palpatine in power, though, as long as he was Vader until, he basically died. So, I
Would it,
guess,
part of me wonders, like, uh, this is where I said things are debatable. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, this is before the whole stupid midichlorian thing came into play.
okay.
So, to me, I believe that Vader could have eclipsed Palpatine eventually. I
Right.
agree with you that it would have taken him longer to do it,
Mhm.
but I think with enough push, and he didn't, have, I mean, because really, if it wasn't for the fact that Luke, I guess eventually Leia came into play, he had really nothing to fight for. And so only wasn't until he found out that oh, his son is alive. He's like, oh, well, that changes the game for him, and that started to
Well,
reveal
but
his weakness.
yeah, I mean, because and this is the problem again. It's a twofold issue, right? You can go by the movies, or you have all this other stuff. I'm talking about official stuff. I'm not talking about expanded universe. I mean, like official.
Mhm.
Um, and this includes, by the way, a lot of things that Lucas brought up during the Return of the Jedi commentary, because he went through a lot of this. And the thing is that yes, he did. I mean, you're right in the sense of the stakes, because once he realized he had these kids and he began to soften towards them,
Hmm.
mostly Luke. But
Hmm. So he
the
didn't find out about Leia until like,
yeah, and he was
you
trying
know,
to use that to turn Luke actually. So it wasn't like,
yeah.
I mean, him finding out about Leia was like anything spectacular either. But here's the thing. He was motivated by hatred because Vader did
Hmm.
blame Palpatine for lying to him, for basically, you know, putting him in the position that he's in, and he loses everything all because he believed this lie. So I mean, I don't think it's necessarily accurate to say that he didn't have any motivation to do it, but you're probably right in the sense of it probably just wasn't strong enough, to push him over that edge,
Well, I'm
because
saying like,
it was his emotion, I
I,
think, that held him back, honestly.
well, what I'm saying is that I was just more so saying that the fact that he once he realized he had those kids, or he at least had Luke, that was the thing that restrained him from going deeper into the dark. It's because
Yeah,
like that's what I'm saying.
right. Almost
It's
like
more
the redemption process started beginning, and then
because now
he's
that's where the light
reversing
came
him.
in.
Yeah, right. It did right.
That's
I
the
see what you're saying. Yeah, and it's sort of
yeah.
reversing that process. So
Hmm.
when he was
So now
all out for
he
hatred and revenge, it's like, oh, we're shifting gears now, and now I'm lightning. So not
hmm
lightning, but lightening. All right. Dom says should be higher. I had to put this because he took the time to put all those emojis in.
what the heck is it?
There are a bunch of thumbs ups. He
Oh,
says, who could possibly be stronger than Vader? He's like, should
oh,
be
you'll
number
see.
one. The only dark side user I recognize. Everyone else is a fake.
Mm,
The Dom has spoken.
yes, this is the way.
This is the way. That's a very dark side attitude of you, Dom. You might actually
Mm.
rank in the dark side users at some point. All right, well, let's find out. Dom wants to know who's stronger than Vader. Number one person stronger than Vader, Plagueis.
I guess.
Oh, now I remember the other one. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. See. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. No, you know
Hmm.
what? Now I remember the number
Yep.
one. Yeah, no, it's over. It's just
Yep.
completely over.
Exactly. Exactly.
But getting, we'll get to number one. But Plagueis, yeah, he's now, for people that don't know, he's actually Palpatine's master. Of course, we're
Hmm.
introduced to him with, have I ever told you the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise? And, you could, again, and this is where it's like, okay, you can make the argument because Plagueis is powerful, but Palpatine did kill him. Of course, I think he killed him in his
Well,
sleep, though. I
yeah,
could be
he
wrong
did.
about that, but
Nope, you're right. You're
okay.
100% correct.
So, I mean, it's kind of a punk move. I mean, you can't really say that you're more. Now, he's more cunning than Plagueis for sure. But,
Hmm.
I could live with this because, Plagueis was a master. He did all kinds of like crazy things. If you read, again, most of Plagueis's exploits are really in the expanded universe, but they did bring him in, so it's like, okay. Um, it's one of those things where he's starting to get his due. The scene that, you can barely see him in this photo, but he's basically peeking around. He was in the Acolyte. He was going to be in season 2 of the Acolyte, hadn't made it. And for that reason alone, yeah, it's kind of like, okay, I was torn between how much worse can this get, and they might explore a little bit more of the Khmer and Plagueis thing. So I was torn between whether or not I wanted to see a season 2 or not of that show. But then I started, because I think you and I actually talked about this on the episode where we saw him. And I think we came to the consensus of, let's just tell his story in comics and novels and not do the Acolyte.
Yeah.
And
Excuse me.
now this is priceless. You gotta love Dom. He's like, who is even that? He's like, they just throw Darth in front of their name and rank them highly. Oh, he's like,
Oh, Dom.
no wonder I don't know him. He was in the worst show of the past 20 years.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
to
true.
be fair, while that is true, but to be fair, he
He was
actually he didn't
was more
originate
relevant
from the
before
show.
then.
Yeah. He didn't originate from that show. They brought him into that show.
Yeah.
Much like they did what was her name? Vestra or whatever. She was actually like
Oh,
the
Destro.
yeah. That was a High Republic character from the High Republic novels that they brought into live action. She didn't originate with the Acolyte. However, that was her live action debut. Same thing with Plagueis. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, he's again, I can
But
hang
he's the
with
one who
that.
kind of like he's the one who kind of of course taught Palpatine a lot of different things about the prophecies of the Force, a lot of the um, magical aspects of the Force. Plagueis was pretty powerful, and he was kind of more advanced in a way where he was into the whole necromancer thing because
Right.
that's what Palpatine got it from. He was like, he was searching for ways to manipulate the Force in order to create life and do all these types of things. So he was one of the early pioneers of that. So
But here's an issue. And this is I
mhm,
can't believe I didn't bring this up earlier. I meant to. We were talking about glaring errors. Where's Darth Bane?
that's what I said that earlier.
Did you say Bane?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
we were talking about
Because
Nihilus, and I was like, yeah, like
yeah,
where's Bane?
Bane. Absolutely. Okay, good. I wanted to make sure he got in there too. Because
He came with
well,
the whole ruler to it
yeah,
anyway.
he came up with the rules exactly. It's like and again, I mean, I get it. They were probably trying to stay away from a lot of Sith Lords because then it could have just turned into a top 10 Sith Lord list. And they were
Yeah,
trying to, I think they were trying to really bridge the gap of look, who is actually tops using the dark side, which is actually a little bit different from the Sith Lord thing. Not much. It's probably splitting hairs. You're probably getting into some semantics in that. But I think that's why they wanted to bring in like your Asajj Ventresses and people like that because they wanted to slant it a little bit more towards dark side users and not necessarily Sith Lords because otherwise Sith Lords would probably dominate the list.
of course.
So I get that. All right, number one. Number one is the son. You had the father, the son, the daughter, and of course we also saw that in Ahsoka at the end, I believe, when um oh, Baylan Skull was staring at the statues. They were like the
Oh
ruined
yeah,
statues.
yeah. So I was trying to
Yeah,
figure out what you were talking about.
I know.
Yeah,
You're
that's
probably
right.
like, what is he hallucinating over there?
Forgot about that, but yeah, you're right. Yep.
You know, I know you were waiting to jump in on the Clone Wars part of it, where we actually got introduced to them. But
Yeah, that's what I was. Yep.
it's like
Yep.
the old man is crazy. But I mean, that's basically where we started to see him being brought into more of this current canon and into live action, more or less. It was really ruined statue. We don't know where they were going to go with that actually, but yes, where we actually are introduced to them is in the Clone Wars, and it was a pretty decent story arc actually. Do you remember how many episodes that was?
I want to say it was maybe three.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was like 3 or 4. I mean, and I
Yeah.
did they pop up more than once?
No, it was basically you had the father who represented neutrality, and then the daughter was the light side of the force, and then the
Right,
son was the dark side, and
right.
they're like they represent the purest form
Yeah,
of
basically
those
for
sides.
people who don't understand, it's like the sun is the dark side of the force. Like
Yeah, he is.
he
Yeah.
embodies it, right? So Dom says there are more Sith Lords other than Palpatine. Oh yeah, a lot.
Oh yeah.
And then he was like, really? And then he was like, Are we serious? This guy ranked higher than my goat Vader? Yeah, because
Yeah,
Vader
there
uses
will
the
be no
dark
Vader.
side. This guy is the dark side.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's almost like he's basically kind of like I don't know if you want to say
it's
he's the
like if Vader is a
originator or
plug, he's the if Vader is the plug, he's the outlet.
yeah, yeah, or he's like the power grid.
Yeah,
You can plug it in, but with no electricity, man.
yeah, exactly. He's the line
he's
that
like
leads.
he's like no, Vader is the embodiment of the dark side. I'm glad you're a Vader fan.
Well, yeah, I mean, I love that about Dom. At least, you know, hey, Vader is my
Look,
guy.
yeah. I mean, you know, because I've often said, okay, Han Solo, right, been known to be,
Hmm.
probably one of my favorites. Vader's like right there. I mean, it's almost like 1A and 1B, you know? It's
Hmm.
not like it really isn't a situation where I rank them higher. It's almost like there's an equal love for both of them. And I'll say this. I am way more inclined to say because they did have the Han Solo series in comics as well. And I did read that, but I have to admit I was a little bit more jazzed to get the Vader one.
Hmm.
Because like
Yeah,
ultimately Vader's just a more interesting character, honestly. There's just
yeah.
like a lot more to him, which is one of the problems that Harrison Ford had. You know, he basically kept saying like, now I don't necessarily agree with Harrison Ford's assessments where he's talking about Han's a 2-dimensional character. He wasn't really that interesting to play. Whatever. It's like, well, maybe you can look at that from just the script of the films, and if you don't go beyond that, I guess I can understand that assessment, but I don't know. Han actually has a lot of depth. You just have to get into the spirit of the character. I don't know. What'd you think? That was a cool list, huh?
Yeah.
We definitely
You know,
went. How long did we go here?
some flaws here and there, but
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
it's cool though.
It was one of those things where
That's kind of
maybe.
that kind of what makes it fun in a way.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, I agree. I think that if it's a list and it just it makes perfect sense or whatever, and everything's cool, it's like, well, there's no real fun there, right? There's no real debate at that point.
Hmm.
But really, honestly, as I've often said, any list, you can't get people to you can't get a lot of people to 100% agree on like anything. Really. So, any list that you come up with, you're either going to get basically the problems that we talked about. You're either going to have a problem with the rankings or you're going to have a problem with the characters. Who's on it, who's not on it, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So, as far as lists go, flawed, but you know, I was I was okay. Like there was nothing on here that made me just like lose my unlike Dom says, you know, are these characters even alive?
When you say alive, I
He
mean,
says Han was good, but Luke, Anakin, Vader, Obi-Wan are all better. It's funny because Obi-Wan is the one that probably to me made the biggest transformation. 'Cause I always loved the Obi-Wan character, but it was more compartmentalized. But then once Ewan McGregor got a hold of it, and then he started to do all the projects, right? The whole prequels. Then of course we got the Clone Wars. So we had a lot of Obi-Wan there. Then, we had a little bit in Rebels. We had obviously the Obi-Wan series. It's like he's really become a very pivotal, interesting, just all around cool character that I definitely developed a huge appreciation and love for over.
yeah. I mean, Obi Wan is a um interesting character just in the course of his development and how he shifts between different phases of his life.
Hmm.
I will definitely say that. Yeah,
I just remember the.
it's kind of like Ahsoka in a way.
Yeah, I was gonna say there was a lot of that, but I mean the thing that just cracks me up. I just remember the borderline heated discussions we used to have when they were thinking of making the Obi-Wan trilogy.
Oh, no one wants to see that crap.
And you're just like, I don't know where it could go. I mean, it was very Dom of you, actually. Uh, it was just so funny, you know. And then eventually it was like you warmed up to it, and then of course when the series came out, I mean, other than some of the issues, you're like, all right, I could see where there are multiple
Yeah,
stories, but yeah, that cracks me up every time.
it was a time.
All right. Ooh, Dom says, do not compare Ahsoka to Obi-Wan. Them's fighting words.
I mean, when you get in the ring,
Yeah. Well, it would
goes
get
around the
us
corner.
viewers. It would definitely get us viewers. It would take head to head as a different meaning, though. It's like physical, actual altercations. Ahsoka is an F tier Jedi, he says.
Okay.
But and that's another thing that we should do at some point too, is our another ranking show. But before we do that, we got to get through the next 5 episodes. Just so you guys know, this is one of the nice things when a new series comes out. There is absolutely no mystery as to what our next show is going to be,
Exactly.
which is good for you, but it's also good for us because we don't have to really figure it out, right? We just go, yep, we're reviewing the
Yep.
next few episodes. Now, I wish Ted had been able to hang on long enough. Are these like a half-hour show or hour show? I think it's a half hour, right?
Oh, I believe so.
I mean, I would think animated. But they have like I remember there were some Clone Wars episodes that were
Or it might
pushing.
be one of those ones where it's like 42 one week,
Oh
13
yeah,
minutes.
yeah, you might be right. Yeah,
you
because
know.
the Clone Wars did that a lot. Where some would be like 17 minutes and another one would be like 43 or something. Yeah, no, you might be right. But whatever it is, obviously everybody is going to be reviewing this series
It
to
says that
death.
most of them are 20 to 25 minutes.
Okay, cool. So they're digestible. I asked that because they're releasing 2 of them at a time, which means we have to review 2 of them at a time. If it's like, an hour each episode, that's a lot. But
Yeah, the
fortunately,
premiere is 28 minutes.
okay, cool.
Yep.
So, yep, next time we're on, we'll review episodes 1 and 2 of Darth Maul, Shadow Lord. So, you're not going to want to miss that. So, I think with that, we'll wrap this up. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed our look at these top 10 dark side users at comicbook.com actually came up with and was fodder for our debate. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Dom says, last comment, starting a petition to boycott the mail show. With he means mall. The mall show. Nobody's with you. Everybody loves it. And we'll find out how much we love it, or who knows. I mean, Ted said that it was really good. It was like classic Star Wars, the whole shot. Maybe we'll agree, maybe we won't. You'll just have to tune in next time. Again, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. So if we can't go live Sunday at 8, you'll know exactly when we go and you can hop on like Dom did. And of course, don't forget to like this video because it really does help us. The algorithm tends to like it, puts it in front of more people. That's what we want. So with that, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the force be with you, always.